we are live. One day at a time, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Onward Podcast. Hi, welcome to the Onward Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Harmon, and it's very interesting that we're doing this episode on mental fitness, because right now we're having a little bit of a challenge. And so that is requiring me to practice my mental fitness exercises. Yay. Okay. We had a little bit of a challenge with Darlene joining us. So I can see that she's here now, and we can talk about how we handled the stress of, oh my gosh, we're supposed to start and we can't because Darlene's having trouble logging in. And things like that happen in life to us every day, right? And sometimes we get kind of spun up about them. And how do we I think COVID has helped us go with the flow a little bit more, learn to adjust, learn that things aren't always going to go as smoothly as we'd like. And we can choose our reaction to that. So anyway, I'm going to bring Darlene on. Let's see. Here we go. There's Darlene. Hi.
I'm so glad I made it in. Technology is great until it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I know. I said, I see you. I just saw this circle going around and around and around on a black screen.
I didn't think about the firewall that I have from my work computer. So you got to be ready. Second, got to have a plan B.
Plan B. Well, we learned that too in the military, right?
Yeah.
I'm just so glad that you're here. So for those of you who don't know, Darlene is my roommate from the Naval Academy. One of them. I had one other, Debbie, and we just got together in a couple weeks ago in October for a few days, and that was so fun. We went horseback riding and did a lot of fun things. So it was so nice to see you again.
It was. I have to admit, I came back from spending time with you and Debbie, having that nice getaway in Western Virginia, and I'm still feeling relaxed and, just ready to take on anything. It was just a really nice reprieve from the daily grind, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It was. Let's see, we have a couple comments. Donjette is here. Hi, Donjette. Yes, thank you. Amen. Right. Hi, Alex. Yay, tuning in from Colorado. Yeah, thanks for joining us. And if you're tuning in, let me know that you're here. Sometimes it might just say Facebook user if you haven't registered your name with StreamYard, but we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So Darlene and I met in July of 1981, many, many years ago.
40 years ago.
I know. We were talking about that. And we wanted to share a few things about what it was like to be in the sixth class of women to graduate from the Naval Academy. We were talking about that some when Debbie and you were out visiting me, and we were talking about the fact that, and I might get the numbers wrong, but so we were in the first class of women was admitted in 1976. Hi, Bob. Yes, go 85. The first class of women was admitted in 1976, and so they graduated in 1980. We came in 1981 as plebes or freshmen. Mm-hmm. And we were in 12th Company, but we didn't start out in 12th Company. We all started out in a different company. And then I guess the Naval Academy leadership realized, oh my gosh, we don't have any women in 12th Company. We've got to pick some and move them into 12th Company, right?
Yep. And it was scary. I mean, we had no idea what was happening. This was like, day 2 or 3?
Yeah.
And I had just remembered everyone's name and hometown. And now I had to go remember everyone else's name and hometown for a new company.
So, yeah. And the reason is because the men in the upper classes had, I don't know if it's the men running the women out, but the women had gone. They left. So we were picked to be in a company that was kind of tough on women in a place that was already tough on women.
Yeah. And which was, but if you think about it, so there were 6 of us that were moved in. So not a large number out of, I think, probably about 125, 130 people total. And only 1 left. So 5 of us stayed. I mean, we made it through, and we did have some classmates that were really supportive of us being there. And that was, I think made all the difference in the world. But I also think, we had to stick together. The five of us, it was not easy. And you were, you go through plebe year, and everyone knows that's going to be hard. But then once it's over, for the men, at least at that time, they were done. They were upperclassmen then. I almost felt in some ways we were looked at for 4 years and under the scrutiny of being a plebe almost for 4 years.
It felt like that.
Yeah.
You remember walking to class and having the tourists go, there's one, there's one, there's a female, there she is.
Yeah. I don't know how many family photograph albums I must be in all over America, because people would be taking my picture all the time. And it's like, I just want to go to class. I just want to be ignored. Actually, my thinking is a small moving target is harder to hit. You don't want to be noticed. That was kind of how we looked at it, right? In some ways.
And then when the women get together, so when it says Facebook user, so I'm not sure who it is. You can let us know who it is. That would be great. Just type in your name, because we're not sure who all is watching. When we get together for reunions and the women get together, one of the things that we talk about every single time is how we wished that we had helped each other out more. But you know what? We were just in survival mode. It was all we could do to, get to formation, get to, all the things that we had to do there, and remember our rates and everything. And so if I wanted to go visit another female classmate that wasn't in my company, I had to brave it and go out in the hallway and risk getting yelled at and everything else. So it was easier to just stay home back in my room.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, we had a shower and a sink in our rooms. Just going to the bathroom was scary. And it's like, how bad do I really have to go? And I don't, I think it was that way for all of us pretty much as plebes. But like I said, once even you got out of that, you were always on display. Yeah. And you were a representative all the time, right? You were under that scrutiny. So, but it's funny. I was talking with someone just the other day. I have alumni disease. I think we all get it, where those really harsh things get farther and farther away. It's true. If I tend to remember the really good things, and like you and Debbie and I all getting together, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, us being friends, if we hadn't come together in this way at that time, we wouldn't have been friends. So for me, that is, that experience made me who I am today. And I wouldn't change that for anything.
No, I know. I agree. So, hi, Elise. Thank you for tuning in. I think it's 2 a.m. your time in Africa. Oh, wow. Hi, Russ. Thanks for joining us. Kelly's here. Hi, Kelly. I think that's Kelly Valentine. Hi, Nigel. Yeah, from Annapolis. Yeah, thank you for watching. So if plebe year wasn't hard enough, I was in a cast most of plebe year, from my toe to my ankle, from my toe to my hip. And one of the things that I remember, because I tore my anterior cruciate ligament, I was back then you were in the hospital for a week and in a full-length plaster cast for 7 weeks, and then in a movable brace for another 7. And I just remember how helpful you and Debbie were. And I specifically remember the one time when you wrote, you may not remember, but you came back from the library, you always had your headphones on listening to music, and you had written the word.
We were supposed to do that.
You had written the words "like a bridge over troubled water" down for me. And every time I hear that song, I think about you, and I think about, think about how much you guys helped me during that tough time, because that was hard.
You know what? And it's funny because I remember coming to visit you in the hospital, and just seeing that enormous scar, and thinking about, oh my gosh, if it isn't hard enough to be, how is she going to get through this? And then I got really selfish, in some ways, because she can't leave. I need her here. Right.
Oh,
I mean, it was like, so it was, I mean, it would have been devastating, not just for you, but it would have been devastating for Debbie and I to
yeah,
lose you. I
yeah,
mean, because we did rely on each other and we did count on each other. And it was a family. I mean, if you think of it in that way, I don't have sisters. So for me, this is the closest I'll ever have to having sisters.
yeah.
We went through a really tough time together, and we relied on each other for survival in so many ways. Um, but but then it's funny because I also look back and think, man, I think I could have done more. I felt like, I was so invested in just surviving on my own in some ways that I often wonder, did I do enough to be supportive of you and help you and
No, you
all of
did.
that? Well, I'm glad. I'm glad to hear
Except for, why don't you tell the audience what kind of a neat freak I am?
that. Well, actually, in some ways, you're probably lucky to be alive. um, uh, so, I consider myself a very middle of the road people, and I was blessed with two roommates who were probably on the total opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Neatness was not your strong suit, Emily, and your mother warned us. She was very, very upfront about that. And Debbie,
She
bless
probably
her
also
heart,
told you to hide all your candy too.
candy, yeah. Debbie, bless her heart, she came from a family of West Point, and everything, and she was smart and squared away, and she was really, and so I was kind of always felt like I was in the middle, right? Between the two of you. But we learned how to survive through that, right? And learn how to be okay with people's differences. It wasn't always easy.
Right.
But we were thrown into a little, what was considered a 2-person room, and there were 3 of us in there, and we had 1 shower and 1 sink. So I don't think if all of us had been neat freaks, if it would have been any much better.
Yeah,
Because
probably not.
talk about a stressful situation. I just remember fitting all our uniforms and all our shoes in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
And you're fairly tall. I'm kind of in the middle, and then Debbie was much more petite. And I said, thank God we had this difference, because we could always tell whose shoes were whose.
Yeah.
Debbie had small feet, you had bare feet, and I was right in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things where, it's so funny. I look back now and go, how do we do it?
I don't know. I don't know how I did it. I don't know why I didn't quit.
And I thought about it. I don't know about you, but there were definitely times I
oh yeah, I thought about it.
thought about quitting. But there was a part of me that was, I don't want to let them win,
Right.
because there were people that didn't want us there.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit, this, I had, my own members of my own family that didn't think I should have been there,
Mm-hmm.
and were not supportive of me being there. And every time I'd call home for all those you don't know what these are, but a payphone in the basement, and I'd be crying and I'd saying, this is hard. I don't like it here. I want to come home. And they, I was my stepfather, unfortunately, and he'd make the comment, oh, I knew you couldn't cut it. And I'd say, oh, I'll show you. I'm staying another week.
Wow.
I'm staying another week. But then I'll never forget. I don't know if you remember this, but first class year, it's like you're on the top of the world.
Yeah. Your senior year. Yeah.
Senior year, you were like the best thing since sliced bread. You don't have as many course hours. You don't have as many restrictions on you. Life couldn't be better. And I'll never forget that. And it was worth all that other stuff to enjoy that first class year.
Yeah. That was a good year.
Yeah. But then you graduate and become an ensign, and you're back at the bottom.
Back at the bottom again. So let's switch to mental fitness, because the topic of this episode is how to Naval Academy graduates strengthen their mental fitness. And I wanted to have this show because, mental fitness is one of my coaching programs. It's based on Shirzad Chamine's best-selling book called Positive Intelligence, why only 20% of teams and individuals achieve their true potential, and how you can achieve yours. And Darlene went through my coaching program, and we've had conversations about, wow, if we had known some of this stuff, we could have, done better at the Naval Academy and handled tough situations throughout our lives. And, I think that there's like a stigma sometimes around the word mental. And I just want to, talk about it. What does it mean to strengthen your mental fitness? And what did it mean to you when you went through the program? Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Sure. I think, I know this is going to be weird to say, but in some ways, COVID and the whole pandemic forced me. I was in a job where I was flying constantly, traveling, and a lot of stress. I was wearing multiple hats. And COVID put a stop to that. And all of a sudden, I started looking around and I'm going, I have been on a treadmill going so fast for so long. And I realized I had neglected not only my physical health. I mean, I wasn't working out, I wasn't eating right, I was probably drinking way more than I should. Just trying to keep going and keep going. So all of a sudden, really, I need to do something about my physical health. And then I realized, you can't have one without the other. You got to have to be really in sync and to really make sure that you're living at, your peak ability. You got to have both physical and mental strength. So then in talking with you, and another good thing about COVID is you and Debbie and I started having, we started off weekly and then kind of went to monthly calls, and I started learning more about what you were doing. And I thought, this is what I need. This is the piece that's missing for me, because I had been relying on the skills I learned at the Naval Academy. I knew how to execute. I knew how to, keep going and get stuff done. And I knew how to lead people. But I really, it's hard to explain. It just was like there was a missing element to it all. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic forced me to slow down and really start thinking about it. And then as you and I talked more and more, I said, this is the element that I need. This is the part that I still am missing. And so it's been since May, since I started. And I'm still doing PQ every day. I got up this morning, positive intelligence. And it's, some people may do meditation or whatever to help clear their mind. This is something that really works for me. It's it's not meditation, but it's a way of managing yourself.
Yeah.
Learning how to manage yourself in those critical situations where, we all know this, if everyone is going crazy around you, you have to stay calm. You have to stay in the moment. You have to understand what's going on, and people take their cue from you.
Right.
So what was working maybe for me before in terms of leadership and my mental abilities, it kind of stopped working. Mm-hmm. And this has put me back on track where, in fact, I had a call this morning and I saw it pop up on my calendar and I went, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to deal with this. But it's funny. I did my positive intelligence this morning. I filled up my battery. I got on the call with them. I listened to what they had to say. And in the past, I would have just been probably a little too direct and negative about what they were, and my response to them would have been too direct and maybe not really helpful in the situation. Totally different outcome. Totally different outcome.
And then they pick up on it. And so, even though, like you said, as a leader of an organization or of a team or whatever, that people pick up on your body language. And when things get really stressful, I know even for me, even if you try to hide it, people can sense it, right? And so, what you're feeling on the inside starts to show on the outside. And you all, people watching know, you can pick up on other people's energy. You can tell if someone's standing right behind you, getting in your space a little bit too much. So I don't know how many times I've seen it. I've done it. You leave one stressful meeting, come right to the other. And you take that stress from the last meeting into this meeting, and everyone's like, what the heck's going on? And so how do you not let those circumstances control your reactions, and how are you better and how do you get better in control of your reactions? And that's what mental fitness does. And what Shirzad explains in here in this book, and we go over it in the coaching program, is we all have these saboteurs in our mind. We have a judge. Everybody has a judge. That's a universal saboteur. The judge judges. ourselves. That's our inner critic. It judges other people. It judges situations and circumstances. And you may be thinking, I don't have a judge. I don't judge people. But when you do this program, you notice even more the judge. It's like this software program running in your, it's like, it's so just like when you say, oh, a red car, I have not seen any red cars on the road. And all of a sudden you start seeing red cars. It's kind of like that. You think you don't have a judge, but you start to really see it. And then your judge will recruit some of your other saboteurs. So what are your top saboteurs, Darlene, that you know from your,
Well, probably people could guess this. I'm a hyperachiever. I mean, that goes probably without saying in terms of having gone to the Naval Academy. I'm restless, and this is where
so I would invite Darlene to say, I have a hyperachiever saboteur and I have a restless saboteur. Because
thank
when you
you.
say I am, you're commanding
Yep.
yourself to be that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So I have a hyperachiever saboteur, and then I have a restless saboteur, which I have noticed more and more in the last few years. It's actually overtaken in some ways and comes to the fore for me. And I think technology plays into this. I have trouble
Yeah.
concentrating. I
Yeah.
get bored very easily, and it impacts all areas of my life. And having the ability now to lower that voice and to lower those forms of behavior and thinking to a place where I am more focused, I am more in control of myself, which means then that the people around me, as you and I talked about this not too long ago, is as a leader, we cast very long shadows. It's one thing when you're in a crowd and how you behave and what maybe other people, but when you're a leader, people are looking to you all the time, and consciously and subconsciously. So if I'm not paying attention, if I'm restless, if I am being very judgmental, that's coming through.
Yeah.
But I would also say, this has helped me in my personal relationships with my husband. We've been married 35 years. And our relationship right now has never been better. And he actually commented on the other day.
Whoa.
Um,
That's just from you going through the program, not both of you, but
no,
you. So a lot of times we're like, well, if my husband would change, things would be
yeah,
better. If that employee would change. But really, if we look at ourselves and if we do some changes, it changes our environment.
absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it, in the grander scheme of things, that is the most important relationship in my life. So it needs to be positive. It needs to be, and he's had a major life change. He retired recently, and all of a sudden, he was an airline pilot. He was in the Navy, then an airline pilot. He was gone all the time, and now we're both home together. That's a big, major change in life. And I do firmly believe that having gone through this training with you, I have been able to deal with it in a much calmer, uh, more fruitful way. And I did, even before he retired, I had concerns about, oh my gosh, what's going to happen when we both retire and we're home together all the time? I don't know. I haven't lived with this guy for 35 years, really. I couldn't be happier. And I do think it's about how I am responding to our relationship, and he picks up on the cues
Right.
and responds as well, because that's one of the things that Shirzad talks about is when our saboteurs come out to play, you're engaging with other people's saboteurs.
Right.
And so it's an escalation, right?
Just imagine in a meeting of a team, there's everyone has a judge, and then there's 9 other saboteurs. So you can picture these saboteurs running around the room in a meeting, because you have another saboteur, which is controller, right?
Yeah.
And I have my saboteurs, my top 2 are hyperachiever, just like you, and restless, and pleaser. And when those 3 get together, which they've been kind of doing this past week, I've been saying yes to way too many things, so I catch it sooner. It really impacts me. And one of the things you kind of can figure out in this program too is how your saboteurs came about, because you weren't born with them. You were born a sage. Go look at a picture of yourself as a baby, just innocent sage. And then we developed these saboteurs as a way to, you know, deal with our childhood or circumstances in our life. I can tell you, and it doesn't necessarily mean you had a bad childhood. I had a great childhood. My father was so involved in with me playing basketball. And, I could have scored 40 points in a game. I was a leading scorer in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. I could have scored 40 points in a game. He'd say, yeah, good game. Now, you remember that one time you went right, you should have gone left or whatever. And it was constructive criticism. The way I reacted to that was to try to really please him. I developed a pleaser saboteur and a hyperachiever to always achieve. And my hyperachiever tells me, you get this promotion, you finish this big project, you're going to be happy.
Happy.
Friggin' lie. Yeah. I found that happiness within myself.
Yeah.
And so you learn in this program to catch your saboteurs in the lies that they're telling you. And that's the mental fitness piece, is how quickly can you catch them, right?
Yep. And, I like you, I went back and looked at, where these things came from. I had my stepfather. I'd come home with a 98 on the test. Why didn't you get 100? So there's the hyperachiever. But it was also, just to be honest, I grew up in an alcoholic home. And that's where my controller really came out, because I was the oldest. I was managing that household, and I was controlling, trying to keep things as calm as possible. And that's just, that is survival.
Right.
And that is what you learn. And you always, particularly in times of crisis, you revert back to what you know.
Right.
And so if you don't make a conscious effort by going through something like this, you're going to continue to repeat the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
Is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And, and then I think about the restless piece. I think, where'd that come from? And then I look back on my mom. She had the restless saboteur. And so I come by all these things honestly, and there's no judgment in them.
Right.
They've also helped me be successful in many ways. But I think what we're learning now is success looks pretty different than, just getting that next promotion or having money or whatever. You've got to be satisfied with yourself.
Yes.
And that is, I will say this, and looking for the silver lining, this last 6 months of having a bit slower pace for my work, I've been able to concentrate on these other things to help me be more successful in the ways that I think are important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think my LinkedIn profile says, I achieved, and then something was still missing. What is it? And, I was looking, we can look externally. We really can look internally too, and figure out that is. And it was self-compassion. How do we show, when we talk about the sage, that's compassion for ourselves, compassion for others. I was listening to some kind of training, and it was about compassion and leadership. And this one guy was the leader, and this other guy came in and told him that the project was going to be late, and he was sorry. And the guy said, normally I would have blown up, just been so frustrated that we're not going to meet the deadline. Why not? But he reacted in a more compassionate way, which enabled the employee to open up and say, I really don't like being late, but I just want you to know. And it was something bad, like one of their kids was really sick and had been in the hospital, or just something like that. Whereas that employee probably wouldn't have shared that if the supervisor had just, snapped at him. So how do you catch that and not snap? And how do you go to compassion and to maybe curiosity, like get curious about I wonder what's going on where this deadline was missed? Because this is an employee that's not usually missing deadlines. What can we do about it? And it's easy for me to talk about it. I my restless saboteur, if anyone from my last team is watching, they'd be like, oh, I could have told you that. Emily's like, let's do this project and then that project and then this project. And, yeah. And it was too much.
Yeah. And what's interesting as you think about that, think about being compassionate and being a compassionate leader. It doesn't mean that you let things slide.
Mm-mm.
But I remember back, when I was on active duty, I had 2 children while I was on active duty. And that is the main reason why I left active duty, because I realized I couldn't manage everything and have a husband who was on active duty, have 2 children and who were in daycare 80 hours a week. But the idea back then was we didn't issue a family in your sea bag. We don't care what your problems are.
Yeah.
Now,
And it's
admittedly,
different now.
admittedly, the safety of our nation comes first. Absolutely. So if you can't commit to that, yeah, I get it. But particularly as a leader now, we're not going to be able to lead this next generation because they're going to expect that compassion. They're going to
Mhm.
expect us to be there for them if we want them to be there for us.
Yeah.
And so you got to have that level of compassion. And I, I remember going to my detailer and saying, "What's my next duty station?" And I, was pregnant with my second child, and she said, "Oh, you're going to Adak, Alaska, unaccompanied." No, I'm not. um, and so we have to change as leaders if we're going to expect people to follow us.
Right.
And then really, I guess that's a misnomer, follow,
Right.
because it's a team sport. you
Mhm.
know we
Mhm.
have ultimate responsibility, but it's a team sport.
Mhm. Well, I think, we hear about this great resignation. People are looking for something bigger
Mhm.
than, work isn't the sole focus of their lives,
Yeah.
right? And if work is miserable, they're not, willing to put in that time. And if they're not getting paid a decent wage, they're not willing to, they'll go look somewhere else. And so I think we've also heard that people leave jobs because of the
Mhm.
supervisor and stuff. So, there's a lot of responsibility as a supervisor. And you're right. You can't let things slip and just be Mr. Nice Guy and,
Mhm.
but there's got to be some compassion there as well and some listening to the employees.
And you have to make choices, I think. I mentioned this, I told you this while we were visiting recently. So my boss was getting ready to retire, and this just happened not too long ago. And she asked me, she goes, "Are you interested in applying for my job? Because if you are, let me know." And I didn't even, literally, I don't even think I thought. I said
Wow.
right off the bat, "No, I don't want your job."
You had done that thinking beforehand, though.
Yeah, I had, but I can tell you this:
Still,
if she had asked me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought twice and said yes.
my pleaser would say, "Yes, you want
Yep,
me? Yes,
yep,
I'll take
yep,
that job."
yep. I would have had to post for it and go through the whole process, but um, I, I had been thinking about this, but it was so funny because I didn't even consciously almost think the word no. It just came out of my mouth because it meant moving to another city. Yes, it meant more money. It meant more prestige, bigger title, all that stuff. But it meant moving to another city, which I would have had to leave my family behind because they wouldn't have come with me. And uh, I didn't want the stress of the job. I looked at the job and I saw what it meant, and it took me away from the job that I really love and
Mhm.
is really in my wheelhouse. And this would be something that was taking me completely in a different direction. And I'm at the stage in my life when I'm like, it's not about the money anymore. It's not about the title. It's about, I want to enjoy what I'm doing and
Right.
realize that I'm making a difference. And so I turned it down. But I can tell you this, just like I said, not even 5 years ago, probably less than that, 3 years ago, I probably pre COVID, I would have said, I'm on it. Sign me up. I'll send you my resume. Here we go. And I'm like, it would not have made me happy.
Yeah. Facebook user says, listen intently to your employees before you react. Yes. And in
Absolutely.
some cases, that's easier said than done.
Mhm.
But that's what we
I
strive
think the
to
other
do.
thing, you mentioned compassion. I also think, coming at life with curiosity.
Mhm.
Always, you mentioned it, this person's great. What's different now? What's happened now? to really
Right.
being curious about what's driving people's motivations, goes a long way. And
Yeah.
just listening, you know, sometimes they just need someone to know that someone cares, and they need
Yeah.
a place to vent, a shoulder to cry on, and then we're, continuing to move on.
Well, so I said that I have a hyperachiever saboteur, and in the book, and you guys, you can get the book and read it. However, that's like getting a book, and I mean, you should read it, I would say, but it's like
Mhm.
kind of getting a book about lifting weights, and you're not going to get stronger. You're not going to improve your mental fitness by reading this book, guaranteed. You got to do the exercises, and there's an app that comes with it, and
Yeah.
it's 6 weeks of exercises to install like a new operating system in your brain. And then like Darlene is in this grow program, which is a program where you go to that gym every day, or, a
Mhm.
couple of days a week, and you work on your mental fitness. But for hyperachiever, and this is really, this is the lies that the hyperachiever saboteur will tell you. Life is about achieving and producing results. Portraying a good image helps me achieve results. I don't know if I really like that, but that portraying a good image, but really like achieving, and I guess I wanted to have a good image. Feelings are just a distraction, and they don't help anything. Oh yeah, that was
Yep.
me.
Yep.
And peace and happiness are fleeting and short-lived in brief celebrations of achievement. Brief, if I even celebrated. Self-acceptance is continuously dependent on the next success. Loses touch with deeper feelings, deeper self, and ability to connect intimately with others. Others might be pulled into the performance vortex of the hyperachiever and become similarly lopsided in their focus on external achievement. And feelings, like doesn't like dwelling in feelings for too long. They distract from achieving goals. And one of the reasons, a main reason why I decided to retire at 56 is because I wanted time for deeper relationships, and I wanted to be able to know what my feelings were. I could tell you happy and sad, and that's about it, because my hyperachiever kept me busy so that I did not have to feel my feelings. And I knew it. I finally awakened to that, and I wanted to make a change. And I thought it would be easy once I retired because I'd have a bunch of time to do it. But no, I have a really tough boss. Her name is Emily, and I have a restless saboteur, would not let me sit and even feel my feelings.
Yep.
Until I had to, I thought it would happen naturally. I had to really kind of be intentional about it.
Mhm. Well, I can tell the difference in you, from when you retired, and you went through a lot right after that, dealing with all that. But how far you've come, you're happier now than I've ever seen you,
Yeah, I'm really happy.
and you're creating a life for yourself that, that's one that provides that happiness for you, but also I think there's a thing in your bathroom that I remember. Was it
Design.
she designed a life that she loved? I think this is the way the quote was.
Mhm,
And I love that idea of design.
mhm,
So life doesn't happen to me.
mhm.
I'm designing, I'm taking charge of this and how I react to the things that come along in my life. It's all about me. I remember the supervisor that worked for me once, and it was the 1 year I spent in HR. HR is not a place for Darlene. um, and so I went back to operations after that. But I'll never forget the supervisor that worked in HR, and people would come to her all the time, and she always had to say, "No one can make you act a fool but you."
Mhm.
So you either can go around being the victim and letting people make you act a fool, right? Or that's your mentality when really it's about you, or you can take charge of how you respond and react to what's going on around you. So sometimes you can't control all that stuff, but how you respond to it is
Yes, that's
absolutely
what we
something
can
you can
control.
control.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I look back on one specific incident that happened to me at the Naval Academy, and then it came back and flared up in my life, in my current job, where I remember I cried once, plebe summer, and I remember this first class telling me, if you cry again, I'm gonna gouge your eyes out. I never cried again. I did not cry again. So I take on this job, and all of a sudden, this woman is reporting to me, and every time I talk to her, she cries. And I mean, it could be an innocuous conversation. This wasn't, me giving her bad feedback or anything like that. She would just start crying. And I took it and took it. And finally, at about the 6-month point, I mean, I just finally said, you know what? We don't cry at work. We cry for people. We cry for people in relationships. We don't cry about work. No more crying. Guess what? She didn't cry again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but I think it really stifled our relationship. And it took many years for us to get to a point, because I did work with this person for quite a long time after that situation. And I really should go back and ask her about that. Ask her if she were, I'm going to see her tomorrow. I may ask her.
Yeah, because you're telling yourself a story about, but maybe it helped her. But still, what would your sage response be? Because that was probably your hyperachiever. Like, we've got product to deliver or whatever, data to, mine, money to do something with. We don't have time to cry and have feelings.
Yeah,
how would you respond now?
I would be curious. I would sit there and say, you know what? I really want to understand, every time we have a discussion, this is what I mean. I literally went through boxes and boxes of Kleenex, and she'd come in and I just put the Kleenex box right in front of her. No lie. And over the years, I think I did figure out the previous person who was her boss, I think might have been bipolar, unfortunately. And it was a very traumatic relationship for her. And I think what happened is that became, after that experience, this is how she interacted with all of her bosses. And rather than being compassionate and trying to help her and figure this out and get her to a place where she felt comfortable, I just scared her into not crying. Right? I'll see her tomorrow. I'll ask her about it, because now that I think about it, this happened years and years ago, but it replays for me. And and I always think of myself as a compassionate, good boss. But in this moment, I was totally not.
You were hijacked.
I was totally hijacked. I mean, I took it for a while, but now I would completely come at this in such a different way.
But you know what is interesting? What Shirzad has us do too, is he has us do, so let's see. Gail says, I like asking her why she always cried. Yes. And hi, Adrian. Adrian is the reason I'm in my current coaching program, because I saw him on Annie Lee's live, and he was in IPEC. And so I'm like, that's where I'm going to go. I looked into it, and I really like how they focus on energy coaching. And someone else says, you controlling your response is key. I heard a quote that life is 20% what happens to you and 80% how do you react to what has happened. And that's so true. One of the things Shirzad has us do in this program is do a meditation in visualization where we're visiting our older elder self. And sometimes I think about that, like, what would my older elder self, how would she want me or think I should respond in this moment? Because something that seems so important now may not be as important to the older elder self. And I tell you right now, I'm coaching a man who's 87, and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's
awesome that he
wants a different life.
Yep. And one of his big focuses is on relationships. So he would be pointing out, he would be, with yours about the woman crying, he would go back and talk to her, write her a note. He wants to resolve a lot of things where he didn't feel like he handled the situation right. Yeah. And it's so awesome coaching him and just seeing how he's looking at, like, he's got a picture he's got in his room. He's got all these 8x10 pictures of all these people that impacted his life up on the wall. He's putting them up on the wall. So relationships is what's really mattering to him. Not how much money he made, or, did they make their profits one year, or did they get that project done on time? It's relationships.
Absolutely. And I've thought about, as I get closer to retirement, it's not about the title. It's about what's the legacy. Did I make a difference? Did I help people when they needed help? Did I, God, this is going to sound really bad, but are people going to be sad that I'm retiring? right? I mean, and it really isn't about stroking my ego. It's about,
No, but
did
how
I
you make
make,
people feel.
yeah, how you make people feel, and did you make a difference,
Yeah.
right? And people will look back, and I have had bosses who are just horrendous, right? And so when I look back at them, they made a difference in my life, but not in a good way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
So,
And
yeah.
I think about, I definitely would have led differently, knowing what I know now from the about myself and the positive intelligence and the hyperachiever saboteur. Can't go back and fix it. So it's not like I have regrets. It's just, we are always learning and evolving and improving. And it's not, when I talk about create a life you love, it's not that I never loved my life up until now and now I'll create something I love. I loved my life at different times of my life. But now I'm in a different phase of my life. And what does a life I love right now look like? And
Yeah.
that's something that we worked on in the other coaching program you were in is,
Mhm.
what is a life that you love when you retire? You're not going to work until you're 80. So, as we want to, I call my retirement a graduation. How do we intentionally plan and visualize how we want our days to look when we retire or when we switch to another job, or what would, how would we, want to live our life? What does a typical day look like? And envisioning that and recognizing, in the wheel of life, in all the different areas of our life, where we are now, where do you want to be in 2 years? I can ask
Right.
people that and they're like, I don't know, wherever circumstances send me.
Mhm.
We can be that way, or we can be intentional about where we're going to be in 2 years.
Or people can tell you, but it's more about the accumulation of title, wealth, because that's a question we ask in interviews with people. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself
Right.
in 10 years?
It's always the title or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's the thing we need to get away from. Now, you and I talked about this recently. Um, I think we're really fortunate. When I
Yes.
think back to way back in our first leadership classes at the academy, they talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And the base, is, the things you need to stay alive. And then you reach this point up at the top of the pyramid where you're really about self actualization and things like that. And I think I'm lucky. I consider myself very lucky because I that's where I see I've satisfied these other things.
Right.
And now I'm at the point where, I've attained all those things I thought I wanted, but it's not enough. I'm not, again, it goes back to how I'm reacting to the situation. So, what does it mean? What does it really mean to be successful or self actualized, however you want to? And it looks different for every person.
Mhm.
And that's what I liked about our coaching. It was no judgment, it was just like asking the right questions to make me consider. And what I loved is when I'd say something, you kind of push back and you'd say, "Well, is that really true? Is that really
Yeah.
true? Can you really can you explain that a little bit more?" And you have to figure that out for yourself. And for every single person, it looks different. But having someone help guide you on the path, that was really important to me because I didn't even know where to start. You're absolutely right. I could have read Shirzad's book, and without doing the work, you're not going to get where you need to be. And just like you would hire a coach to help you, if you wanted to go train to run a marathon or do something that you'd hire a coach in that, why wouldn't you hire a coach to help you with your mental fitness
Yeah.
is the way I look at it. And I think for me, as you and I talked, one, we've known each other a long time. And at first that might seem kind of strange.
Yeah.
But the thing that, and I think you and I talked about this at the very beginning, are you sure you want to do this? We're friends, thing. I felt really comfortable that it was actually going to be really helpful for me to have that because you were someone who knew where I came from
Mhm.
and kind of understood what the drivers we went through a very difficult time in our life that shaped and molded us, and I needed someone to work with who understood that about me. So that's what worked for me,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
um it's like I I don't want to go to a diet someone for my diet who's never had a weight problem. I'm sorry. You don't get me. You don't understand me. You don't understand my challenges.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
think that's really important as you're thinking about doing something like this, is making sure you've got the right person that works for you. But I needed guidance. I needed, I'm smart. I could
Yeah.
read all the books, but, and excuse my language, I needed someone to call me out on my bullshit.
I
Just
can do
you're
that.
very good at that. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
it's as a coach, we tend to look at life through blinders, like a paper towel holder,
Mhm.
and this is all we see. When really there's so many more options in our lives, and we sometimes use words like "I need to" or "I have to" instead of
Mhm.
"I choose to." That's a more
Right.
empowering word. But we all need coaches. Like I'll give you an example of what I was working on with my coach the other day. I told her I'm just frustrated because I don't have any white space on my calendar or enough. I've come a long way. In fact, she's
Mhm.
interviewing me on Veterans Day.
Oh,
We're going
cool.
to do another episode, a special
Mhm.
episode next Thursday, and we're going to talk about some of the things
Mhm.
that she has worked with me on. In fact, she's going to make me. I'm not going. I'll do it quickly. She's going to make me turn and show everybody that wall, which I don't like to do.
I love me wall. That's your I
Yeah,
love
I don't
wall.
like to do that. She's going to make me talk about that, which I don't like. But so she's gonna. I've been working with her since January, and she, she'll tell you like how far I've come. But still, I sometimes get back into a pattern. We have these patterns in life, and I get back into a pattern where I don't have enough white space in my day to just relax. Like I might have a half an hour in between meetings, but I've got to take my dog out, and I walk my neighbor's dog, which is my choice. So I got to go do that. And then I've got to eat. And then my restless saboteur gets in the way, and I don't finish putting some things away. And then sometimes in the evening, my place isn't as neat as I would like it. And so I know that there's like an underlying reason for that. It's not that I don't know how to create white space on my calendar. I do.
Mhm.
I know how to block my calendar. I live by my calendar. It's color coded. I know how to block it. But
That's your
then,
problem. You're living by your calendar.
yeah, well, yeah, that's true too. But the thing is if you think back to your childhood, okay, in my childhood, it was, what are you doing? You've got to be doing something.
Yep.
And I'm not criticizing my parents, but it was like that I felt rewarded for being productive and doing something when actually sitting and meditating or just sitting and reflecting on your day is doing something.
Yeah. And, for me, learning, right? I mean, and learning what you want to learn instead of what you have to learn for your, adding to that, whether it's about personal growth or just learning about the wider world around you, you know, that's important stuff to do.
Right. To
Yeah,
have that space to do
to
that.
do that.
Not
Yep,
be one to
absolutely.
meeting to meeting. So I caught myself, I mean,
Hmm.
I can catch my saboteurs and lies a lot quicker. So as we wrap up, maybe Darlene, just give
Hmm.
a little example of like what's it like to be in the how do you strengthen your mental fitness? What do you mean this mental fitness program?
Hmm. So for me, it is about being open and honest with yourself and not hiding from it, right? So first learning about what it is that motivates you and drives you, but then learning about where do I want to be? Where, really being honest, um, I want that sage. I want that person, that um, the right voice in my head speaking to me, the one that's telling me that I'm okay, I'm good, I'm successful, no matter what my title is, all those things. But it takes repetition and work.
Mhm.
You can't you can't just say it, right? So that's
Right.
where going through the program, using the tool, using the app, which I do every morning.
You have an app on your phone.
I have an app on
Yeah.
my phone, and it's like I get up and I work out physically, and then my next part is to do the mental part, which is to
Mhm.
sit with myself, really control my where I am in my body and in my mind, and then going throughout the day, when I feel, I've learned to recognize the things as they start coming out, those saboteurs, when I give them a little room, is to how to go back to a point where I can control and say, no, that's not the way I'm going to react to this situation. But it takes
Mhm.
practice. And I see
Mhm.
this as a lifelong thing, just like
Yeah.
your 87-year-old, right? This is
Mhm.
lifelong. And that's, just like we do with our physical self, we have to do it with our mental self. So that means every day. And I
Mhm.
can tell the days that I don't do it, I start my day in a deficit,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of, it is part of my day now. I get
Yeah.
up in the morning and
Right.
literally
So
work
you
out.
have an app, it's kinda like a gym, right? And
Yeah.
there's different exercises you can do in that app to strengthen
Hmm.
your mental fitness. Some of them
Right.
are 2 minutes long. Some
Yep.
of them are, 5 minutes long. Some of them are
Like
12
12.
minutes long.
Hmm.
So the
Yep.
12-minute long one would be something that you do if you have a huge challenge coming up. You might do, and they call them PQ reps. You might do a PQ rep before a
Hmm.
meeting that
Yep.
is gonna be a little bit challenging or with a tough customer or whatever.
I
You
did
do
that
some
this morning.
PQ reps. You did that this morning.
Mhm.
You react differently in that meeting. You
Yep.
handle yourself much differently. And it's not like you meditate in the morning, and it's not really meditation. So
It's
somebody
not
who meditates in the morning, this is different because you're doing these PQ exercises throughout the
the
day.
day. Hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the critical part, because it reinforces throughout the day. And I love it because I might do the gym part where it's very specific exercise for 5 minutes, 12 minutes, but it's the daily things where he has, like, one day it was, thinking about yourself as a child, and remembering that child and giving them the grace, right, of, you are a sage, you come from something that's beautiful, don't forget that beautiful child.
Yeah.
It's and reinforcing that throughout the day, and then doing that consistently day after day provides you with the strength that you need, that when the world gets tough, and it will get tough, that you have the right things in your toolkit to cope with it. Be the strength Have the strength that you need to get through what you need to get through, and be and give yourself that grace. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the part I think. There was always a voice in my head, I was never enough, I was never enough, and it was just there all the time. Is to rest and say, I am good enough.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful thing.
Yep. And you go through this program in a group. So you're in like a small pod and you meet with me once a week and we talk about some of the exercises that you did and some of the training that you got in the app and how is it going for you. And so it's kind of like a weekly coaching session that you get.
Hmm.
And everybody shares, when they struggled with it or when they didn't. You can communicate with everybody in the app, and you can actually communicate with people all over the world that started on the same day you did. So you get to see somebody saying, "Oh, this is how I did this," and you're like, "Oh, I
Hmm.
got to try that in my life," because you can, yeah. So anyway, I'm just so glad that you benefited from it, Darlene, and
I did.
I appreciate you sharing it because I wanted to have an episode on this too,
Hmm.
because I do make posts about mental fitness and positive intelligence, and this addresses all of the areas of emotional intelligence too. So imagine like a leadership team going through this program together, or even a family that's having some issues with their teenagers, or spouses having issues. You can go through that as a pod, and it's not to say, "Oh, I knew you were a controller."
Yeah.
I knew no, it's not to look at somebody else and say, "Well, that's why you are the way you
Mhm.
are. I knew you were a stickler." It's to look at yourself.
Yeah.
Say, "Oh, I have a controller saboteur. How is that saboteur showing up in my relationships? And how do
Hmm.
I want to behave differently and react differently?"
Yep. And as I mentioned earlier, I can see the most important relationship I have in my life with my husband has improved greatly, just by I'm showing up differently. I still love him, that hasn't changed, but I'm showing up differently in how I respond to the challenges that we have, just as a normal couple. But
Mhm.
then, just even in the down moments, the positive I see his child and I give him grace, right?
Mhm.
And he reflects that back to me. And I think that's that, if nothing else, I would say that's worth, you know, every moment I spend trying to improve my mental fitness is just improving that relationship.
Thank you for being my guest tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so good to see you. And
Yeah.
and I thank you very much for bringing me along on this journey.
And thank you to everybody who joined us. I don't have time to list everyone's names, but Russ, Alex, Gabe, Adrian, I think Kelly Ballantyne was on, Bianca, Elise. I appreciate you guys. I'm not sure who Night Owl 363 is, but I'll figure it out. It says, hello, guess who the Night Owl is? I'm not sure who that is, but we'll figure it out. And thank you all for watching. Darlene, if I'm going to put you in the green room for just a minute and play my last video. And I put a banner up here. This is a banner for my website. It's just emilyharmon.com. And that's the coaching, the Onward Accelerator program that I coached that Darlene mentioned she was in. And then this is the positive intelligence coaching. And if you want just positive posts every day about creating a life you love living, feel free to join the Onward Movement Facebook group. The Onward Movement is all about embracing authenticity, releasing the fear of judgment, what other people say, whatever the people think, so that you can create the life of your dreams with confidence. So thank you, everybody. I'll play this one last video. Wait, someone made a comment. Oh, Donjette. Thank you, Donjette. I appreciate you watching. All right. Play this video and then we will be done. The Onward podcast is sponsored by Emily Harmon Coaching and Consulting. Visit my website, emilyharmon.com, to learn more about my coaching programs and how you can work with me. Let's move onward together.